It is weeks like this that this series was created for. You guys have seemingly been really enjoying it, as every single episode you guys have been crushing that like button. And with this episode, all I ask is if you enjoy the series, be sure to hit that like button, maybe share it with a friend. That would be greatly appreciated. But why do I say it is weeks like this where this series was created for? Well, some big things happened this week. Starting off, if you haven't heard about it, Warner Bros. Games is having some big issues. Essentially, they are completely crashing out. Having some of the biggest IPs in the game, they have essentially forgotten how to make video games and don't know what to do with themselves. We'll get more into that one. And then it was a huge week in Call of Duty. First of all, if you don't like Call of Duty anymore, one of the reasons may be skill-based matchmaking. Well, as it turns out, the person who created skill-based matchmaking has taken an interview and answered a bunch of questions, which, don't worry, I have a theory behind all of that. Also, AI content has finally been confirmed to be in Call of Duty. They've implemented new features for microtransactions, and leaks are everywhere when it comes to Season 3, specifically Verdansk. And that is why this series was invented, to take all of that news, put it all together, and what do you get? The little something called the Weekly Reload. Series where we dive into everything video games, looking at the recent news, what games are coming out that week, what games have already come out, and specifically the seemingly week after week downfall of the gaming industry. And that is where Warner Bros. Games comes in. If you haven't heard, they're up creek without a paddle after releasing Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which turned out to be a $200 million flop. Turns out their solution to that was just say, okay, let's go ahead and cancel absolutely everything. If you haven't heard about it, Monolith, the creators of games like Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor, the people who created the Nemesis system, which don't worry, we'll come back to, were tasked with creating a game for Wonder Woman, which they originally were going to take on the same sort of system that the Shadow of War game had with the Nemesis system, and then later said, maybe we shouldn't do that, let's make an action adventure game. And turns out Warner Bros. Games just says, no, you're not creating any game whatsoever, because now Monolith Games, who created the Fear series, who also created the Shadow of War series and Shadow of Mordor, who created a system called the Nemesis system that was so good they had to patent it to make it so that no other gaming company could use, has now been shut down completely. They will be making no more Shadow games. They will be making no Wonder Woman game. They do not exist anymore. On top of that, did you remember that game called Multiverses? Remember a couple weeks ago we talked about it getting shut down? Well, yeah, there was another studio that was working under Warner Bros. Called Player First, and well, back in July, they were doing so good with Multiverses, Warner Bros. Straight up bought the entire company. Now they are completely closed. They shut them too, as well as Warner Bros. San Diego, which I don't actually know what they were doing. As far as I'm concerned, they were just a support studio. But this is really big, because these are a bunch of the biggest IPs for Warner Bros. Games that are now completely gone. Their specific statement is they want to focus on fewer and bigger games, which in my opinion is the complete wrong thing for them to do, because that means if just one of those fails, it screws over the studio so much more. So what are they left with? They're left with Harry Potter and Hogwarts, Batman, Mortal Kombat, Lego, and Game of Thrones. No, you did not hear me wrong. They are working on Game of Thrones games, which, yeah, would have done really well like 10 years ago, maybe before Season 8 came out. But really, who's sitting around going, you know what we need? Game of Thrones. Moving on over to Call of Duty. First off, we have the skill-based matchmaking interview. So this was done with a person by the name of Charlie Olson. And basically what you need to know about him is he was the one that created the skill-based matchmaking MMR system that is in Call of Duty to this day. And basically he said a few different things that are really important. First of all, apparently EOMM, or engagement optimized matchmaking, is not a thing. It is purely skill-based matchmaking, but skill-based matchmaking has become so damn good that it has essentially evolved into engagement optimized matchmaking, because it exists after every single game and doesn't just base itself around your overall skill. Essentially, skill-based matchmaking has evolved into what EOMM is which is kind of wild to think about. He also told us that this started back in 2016, think Infinite Warfare. That is when skill-based matchmaking was originally implemented, and it seems like it's just got thicker and thicker year after year. He specifically stated that he doesn't like what skill-based matchmaking has become because it's made it so that your level, how good you are at the game, your kill death ratio, and basically how good you eventually get don't really matter, as you're going to be placed up against similar skill level players. He states that he thinks in game there should be some sort of system that shows you which MMR level you are, so you still have some sense of progression. So all of these things were stated, and one sec. I don't even think this needs to be put on this week, but it's tinfoil hat time, baby. I want to show you something. First of all, the person, Charlie Olson, who we were talking about, this guy that created skill-based matchmaking, he now has a new company. He no longer works for Call of Duty. This company is called Invocation Games. This is the website. Multiplayer needs MMR, and he's clearly worked with games like the Finals and Mini Royale. So this is a guy who created MMR systems in Call of Duty and now has a company completely dedicated to putting MMR, skill-based matchmaking, into other games. Don't you think he would be divested into saying things like skill-based matchmaking are good for video games? Because his job is to go to other games, sell his company and say, use our company, we will increase the retention of your players by implementing skill-based matchmaking and make it do better. Hence why in the interview that was put out, he said that if skill-based matchmaking wasn't there, 50% of the player base would be left gone off of Call of Duty. This isn't an interview about whether or not skill-based matchmaking is good. It's an interview saying why his company Invocation Games should be used on many games, including Call of Duty, because he thinks he could implement a better system that he has already created. Yes, it is interesting to hear from someone that's built skill-based matchmaking. At the same time, look where the money is, think about where it's going, and clearly this is more of an ad for Invocation Studios or Invocation Games as a company to sell their MMR creation to other games. But again, tinfoil hat, all allegations, baby. Now, what isn't allegations is, remember how we were talking about AI in Call of Duty? Well, as it turns out, AI is in Black Ops 6. You see, Steam had a policy where if you have AI in your game, it needs to be disclosed to everyone playing your game. And when we saw things like the six-fingered zombie at Christmas, everyone was like, what is going on with this? Turns out what was going on with this is that indeed AI has been used in the game. Now, unfortunately, the way that the Steam policy works is we don't have to be told what was used for AI, what they created with it, whether it was calling cards, loading screens, maps, weapons, gameplay. We will never know because that's not a part of the policy. And I truly do think that it should be, because now we are left looking at everything that is put into the game going, that's probably AI, that's probably AI. Speaking of AI, a brand new thing that was implemented in the game is a little thing called wishlisting. I hate this. With a burning desire, I hate this. So, basically, now when you go into a kill cam, you can now see what skin or what weapon blueprint someone is using and wishlist it so you can go in the store and buy it. This is a game that needs its servers and anti-cheat fixed, but they are putting in a wish list feature like Call of Duty is goddamn Amazon Prime. Now, this week in Call of Duty, they implemented the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles event, which is very similar to the Squid Games event that we had before, except this time it's with turtles, pizza, and I guess a rat as well. Next week, we do not have a new event, so I don't see us getting any new playlists or anything like that. However, the following week, we have the St. Patrick's Day event, as well as March the 10th, which you may be wondering what that has to do with anything. Well, we've based off of all of the news, March 20th is when we're going to be getting Season 3, but March 10th is the 5-year anniversary for Warzone. I am guessing March the 10th is going to be the day that Verdansk coming back is going to be fully revealed, and we will get a look at the game, which is then supposed to come out on March 20th with Season 3. Now, speaking of which, there's a ton of leaks revolving around Warzone. First of all, last week we already talked about characters like Rose and Mace making a return to the game, as well as Hudson. That was in last week's weekly reload. Other things are the Grau and the HDR from the original Modern Warfare 2019, as well as Warzone, may be coming back as well. Other reports show weapons like the AMAX and the Kilo, which were fan favorite weapons during the original Warzone as well, might be coming with Season 3 too. And then the other two things that seemingly are making a return is floating loot, people have been asking for forever, is apparently coming with Verdansk, as well as in a later season, it sounds like they are implementing the red doors from Verdansk 84 as another travel mechanic. Now, based off of leaks and rumors that we have seen over the past little while, it appears as though they're going to be going back to some old map traversal where redeploy balloons and things like that will not be returning. So things like the red doors along those lines might be the new replacement for that, as well as maybe faster vehicles. We don't fully know yet, but these are kind of what the leaks are saying. And another surprising one is, remember how the rumor was with Black Ops 6 we were going to be getting a map for Avalon, the fictional universe where the entire story is taking place for Black Ops 6? Well, apparently that might never happen. And this is not the first time that this has happened to Warzone. Originally in Black Ops Cold War, we weren't supposed to get Verdansk 84. We were supposed to get one that took place in like the Ural Mountains, kind of like what we ended up seeing in Outbreak within Zombies. But that ended up getting removed. Later on, we found out the Avalon map was supposed to come out this year with Warzone, but then they were working on Verdansk, so that was coming, and now it literally might not be coming at all even next year, and I don't know why. One other rumor is that the next Call of Duty game, we'll just call it Black Ops 7, coming out in 2025, may be still developed for the old consoles like PlayStation 4. And the reasoning for that is the next Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 4, after that, in other words, Call of Duty 2026, is said to be the first Call of Duty on some sort of new Xbox hardware, and then last-gen consoles will no longer get Call of Duty. It is a jumbled mess, and speaking of jumbled messes, these aren't the only leaks we got. The one other one, and I actually made a video on this earlier this week, was about leaks regarding Modern Warfare 4. And in other words, Call of Duty 2026 is going to be Modern Warfare 4, and it's going to have two story elements. There's going to be the SAS team, aka Task Force 141, and then there is going to be the Demon Dogs, which is going to be focused on Griggs, a fan favorite character from previous Modern Warfare games. I have a whole video on that one. It'll be linked down in the description if you want to check it out. Now, as far as some new things that we got, check this out.
Few survive this world, but those who do awaken.
This is Dune Awakening. This is a game I don't know what to think about. I've heard relatively good things. Essentially, it's an MMO survival game that I don't fully understand much about. The whole Dune series as a whole isn't one that I have dove deep into, but seemingly they're coming out with everything. Multiple movies, a game here, and it even got a release date for May the 20th. So it's coming relatively soon, and honestly, the trailer looks pretty good. Now, speaking of trailers with good and bad news, one other one we got is Fable. Fable's game that we thought was coming out for Xbox this year in 2025 is no longer coming out this year. It's coming out in 2026. And they actually showed us off some gameplay for Fable, and I must say, it looks pretty good. The combat looks more realistic, down to earth, almost like they're going for a Souls-like vibe. And they, put it this way, they know what we want. They definitely know what we want. This is how the trailer ended. As far as what came out this week, really, it wasn't much. It was essentially one game and one-man show, and that is Monster Hunter Wilds. I played this one over on Twitch, and the gameplay is up over on my second channel if you would like to check that out. Again, all the links down in the description. But so far, this game is reviewing incredibly well, having an 89 on OpenCritic and dethroning Kingdom Come Deliverance as the top reviewed game this year so far. From my 3 hours-ish playtime so far, I must say, I've really enjoyed the game. It has so much depth and such a deep learning curve. This is personally the first Monster Hunter game I've played, and just trying to get around all of the game systems, figure out what the heck is going on, and just seeing how deep this game truly goes, it makes sense why people get so invested in this game and this universe as a whole. It makes you just saying, let's get one more monster, one more, just we'll go get one more. And some of those fights take a really long time, but needless to say, I think people are really going to enjoy this one, hence why this is pretty much the only game coming out this week or next week. No game wants to compete against this one. Now, there was one other thing that happened this week that wasn't really competing with Monster Hunter Wilds, and that was an alpha for Splitgate 2. Once again, I played this over on the second channel, Ink TV, which you can check out down below, but let me just say, I was shocked with this game. I played an earlier alpha of this and wasn't drawn into it nearly as much as I did with this. Think Halo meets Portal with some really good and fast gunplay. This is going to be an interesting game considering this is only an alpha. But yeah, go check it out on the second channel, or it's just this weekend that the alpha is live. So if you want to play it, today's pretty much your last chance. So over the next few weeks, things are going to get crazy with season 3 information, Verdansk information. And honestly, we are right around the corner from starting to get leaks of the next Call of Duty game, 2025, which is set to be Black Ops 7. So if you want to stay up to date on everything video games, everything Call of Duty, the best way to do so is hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on, hit the like button if you enjoyed this one. And until next Sunday, thanks so much for watching. And until next time, peace.